There will be seasons in your life when everything feels like it's falling apart. The path that once felt clear becomes foggy. The things that used to motivate you no longer spark anything inside, and the people around you seem to speak a language you no longer understand. This isn't failure. This is the shedding of an old identity. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it's not the end. It's the beginning of something real. Carl Jung said that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. And in that one sentence, he revealed what so many people try to escape from. You cannot grow if you're unwilling to suffer. But not all suffering is destructive. Some of it is sacred. Some of it is the furnace that forges your strength, not by breaking you, but by burning away what no longer serves you. You may be walking through fire right now. You may feel lost, unworthy, or alone. But you are not weak. You are not broken. You are in the process of becoming. Most people try to skip this phase, the messy middle. They try to leap from who they were straight to who they want to be. But transformation doesn't work that way. Before a new self can rise, the old self must unravel. And that unraveling, the uncertainty, the confusion, the moments of deep questioning, that is where the power lives. It's where you confront what's been running your life from the shadows. It's where you meet the parts of you that you've avoided, the anger you suppress, the fear you pretend doesn't exist, the grief you never let yourself feel. And when you meet those parts with curiosity instead of judgment, something incredible happens. They begin to soften. They begin to speak. And what they reveal is not weakness. It's truth. Pain is a brutal but honest teacher. It doesn't flatter your ego. It doesn't care about your plans. It shows you what's real. And in doing so, it invites you to build something deeper than performance. It invites you to build authenticity. And authenticity can't be faked. It's earned. Through nights of self-reflection, through tears that don't need an audience, through conversations with your own soul. Carl Jung believed that healing is not about fixing yourself, but about discovering what you've always been beneath the noise. He saw that suffering is not the enemy. It's the passageway. The dark night of the soul isn't a detour from your purpose. It is the furnace where purpose is forged. You may not see it clearly now. You may still feel like you're standing in the ruins. But I promise you, this version of you, the one that's honest enough to feel, brave enough to face discomfort, and strong enough to keep moving anyway, that version is unstoppable. Because once you've walked through your own darkness and survived, no one else can hold that power over you again. You've met the dragon. You've learned its language. And now, you ride with it. You are not a victim of your pain. You are the author of what comes next. Sometimes the people who trigger you the most are actually showing you the parts of yourself you haven't accepted yet. That's not easy to hear, but it's real. Carl Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Because projection is the mind's way of outsourcing what it doesn't want to deal with internally. The anger you feel towards someone else may actually be the frustration you haven't expressed in your own life. The judgment you place on others may stem from the shame you haven't resolved within. The things that make you uncomfortable in other people are often reflections of what you've disowned in yourself. This is why relationships, not just romantic ones, but all relationships, are such powerful mirrors. They reflect your patterns. They reveal your wounds. They show you where you still have work to do. Not so you can blame others, but so you can take responsibility. Because the moment you stop saying, "They did this to me," and start asking, "Why did I respond that way?" that's the moment you shift from victim to creator. And that shift, it changes your life. You start to realize that emotional reactions aren't just surface-level responses. They're messengers. They show you where you've been hurt. They show you what you value. And if you pay attention, they'll show you exactly where to begin healing. Most people live in emotional autopilot. They react without reflection. They blame without pausing. They speak from old pain and call it truth. But when you develop emotional mastery, when you become curious instead of reactive, calm instead of combative, you take your power back. You stop giving your peace away to every insult, delay, or disappointment. You learn to hold your center, even when the world tries to pull you off balance. Carl Jung taught that the goal isn't to eliminate emotional discomfort. The goal is to understand it, to listen to what it's telling you, to use it as a map, not a sentence. This level of awareness is rare because it requires honesty. It forces you to look at the ways you've abandoned your own needs, compromised your truth, or allowed others to define your worth. But in that honesty is freedom. Because when you know where your patterns come from, you're no longer controlled by them. You stop repeating cycles. You stop attracting chaos. You start choosing from clarity, not survival. And when that happens, your energy shifts. You become less interested in drama, less impressed by validation, and more committed to your inner peace. That peace isn't weakness. It's power that doesn't need to prove itself. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows who they are and no longer feels the need to convince others. This is the path Carl Jung was pointing to. A life where your emotions no longer run wild beneath the surface, but become allies in your self-understanding. A life where you stop fighting reality and start flowing with awareness. And the more aware you become, the less you need to control everything. Because you realize, the battle was never out there. It was always within. Most people live as if they have forever. They scroll endlessly. They waste time in fake conversations, in shallow distractions, in routines that numb the soul but look productive from the outside. And all the while, life is slipping. One quiet moment at a time. Carl Jung said, "Life really does begin at 40. Up until then, you are just doing research." He wasn't talking about age. He was talking about awareness. He was talking about the shift, that moment when you realize time is your most valuable currency, and you've been spending it like it's unlimited. The truth is, your time here is short, and once you really grasp that, everything changes. Your tolerance for fake smiles shrinks. Your desire to impress disappears. You stop postponing the things that matter because you realize waiting for the perfect moment is just another way to hide. You stop living to avoid regret, and you start living to create something, even if that something isn't polished or perfect, even if no one else understands it. Carl Jung believed that the search for meaning is what gives life depth, not the search for comfort, not the chase for perfection, not the illusion of safety. Meaning. Real personal meaning. The kind that doesn't come from checking boxes, but from asking better questions. Questions like, why am I really here? What kind of impact do I want to leave behind? Who would I be if I stopped pretending? These aren't easy questions, but they're the ones that unlock everything. Because once you stop living like you're immortal, you begin to live with urgency. Not the frantic, anxious kind, the grounded, clear kind. The kind that says, my time matters. My attention matters. My energy is sacred, and I will no longer waste it on things that shrink me. This is when your life takes shape, not just in what you do, but in how you do it. You show up with presence. You speak with intention. You make art, or you raise children, or you build businesses. But now, it's not about being seen. It's about being true. And that truth? That's your real legacy, not your job title, not your social media, but how people feel in your presence. what you awaken in them just by being yourself, how deeply you lived, even in the face of uncertainty. Jung believed that death wasn't the enemy, it was the mirror. The mirror that asks, are you living in alignment with your soul, or are you just surviving in a role? And if that mirror shows you something you don't like, you don't have to panic. You just have to begin again. Right now. Because every moment you're breathing is a chance to write a different story. Every breath is permission to shift, to return, to stop running from your life and start living it, raw, honest, and fully awake. And when you do that, when you live from truth, from meaning, from inner authority, time no longer feels like a threat. It becomes a companion. Not something you fear, but something you respect. There comes a moment, quiet, private, and sacred, when you realize you can't keep living your life for everyone else. Not your parents, not your peers, not the version of you the world thinks it knows. There's a deeper truth inside you, one that's been whispering all along, calling you back, asking, gently but persistently, who were you before the world told you who to be? Carl Jung said that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And yet, that's where your real freedom lives. Not in rebellion, not in performance, but in reclamation. Reclaiming your soul from the cages it was taught to call home. Reclaiming your softness from the world that made you hard. Reclaiming your voice from every moment you stayed silent just to be loved. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to be tougher. You don't need to prove anything to people who can't see you. What you need, what you've always needed, is to return to your center, to your own rhythm, to the part of you that knows how to breathe even when everything feels uncertain. Because beneath all the roles, all the defenses, all the overthinking, there is a self. And that self is not wounded. It is not broken. It is whole. It is wise. And it's been waiting for you to come back. Carl Jung called this your true self. Not the mask, not the shadow, but the integration of both. The version of you that no longer fragments yourself to fit into other people's expectations. The version that's not afraid to feel deeply, love honestly, and walk away gently when your soul says no. This is the romance no one talks about. The romance of coming home to yourself, of making peace with your contradictions, of falling in love with your complexity. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. You are not here to betray yourself for belonging. You are not here to dim your inner world so someone else can feel comfortable in theirs. You are here to live in color, to be sincere in a world that teaches you to be cool, to be present in a culture that celebrates detachment, to be soft in a world that confuses softness with weakness. Your softness is not weakness. It's strength that doesn't need armor. It's intimacy with your own emotions. It's the courage to say, I feel this deeply, and I still choose to stand tall. That is power. That is wholeness. That is what Carl Jung meant when he spoke of individuation, not just self-awareness, but self-devotion. The devotion to becoming a full human being, layered, flawed, divine. Not an idea, not an image, but a living truth. And when you begin to live like that, rooted, romantic, awake, everything begins to soften around you. People feel it. They relax in your presence, because you're not trying to be anyone. You're simply being. And that, more than anything, is what the world needs right now. Not more performance, more presence. Not more control, more connection. Not more noise, more soul. There's something holy about a person who decides to become whole. Someone who doesn't just survive life, but meets it. Who doesn't just exist through patterns, but questions them. Who looks their past in the eyes and says, you don't define me. Because becoming whole isn't about becoming perfect. It's about making peace with the child you were, with the choices you made, with the person in the mirror who's still learning how to love themselves. Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." And that's what you're doing. You're waking up. You're no longer running from your past. You're not addicted to approval. You're not waiting for someone else to rescue you. Because the hero was always you. You are the one who keeps getting back up. You are the one brave enough to pause instead of escape. You are the one healing bloodlines, not just for you, but for every soul who came before and everyone who will come after. That kind of courage? That's rare. That's sacred. And yes, the world will try to distract you from it. It will offer you shortcuts. It will tempt you to numb out, to shrink down, to forget who you are. But every time you choose presence over avoidance, every time you choose truth over performance, every time you come back to yourself when it would be easier to abandon who you are, you're doing something revolutionary. You're rewriting the story. You're becoming the kind of person the world needs. Not louder, not richer, not more liked, but more real. And real people don't chase their worth. They remember it. So remember this. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be honest. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to stay curious. You don't need to rush. You just need to return, again and again, to the place inside you that already knows the way. Because it does. Even when you doubt. Even when you fall. Even when the path feels invisible, your soul has not forgotten the way home. And when you finally reach it, you'll understand that the whole journey, every scar, every silence, every shattered version of who you used to be, was worth it. Because it led you here, to a place where you don't need to perform, pretend, or prove. You just need to be. Fully, freely, finally. So if this spoke to something deep inside you, if you felt even one part of your truth echoed in these words, pause for a moment, take a breath, and leave a comment below. Tell us what you're waking up to. Tell us who you're becoming. And if this moved you, if it reached the quiet corners of your soul that the world usually ignores, share it. Not for the algorithm, but for the people who need to remember that they're not alone on this path. And most of all, don't forget to subscribe. Because you've only just begun this journey, and we're going to keep walking it together. Through the dark, through the doubt, through the silence that leads to truth. This is not just motivation. This is transformation. And you were born for it.